It was Thursday. I was still at work on my diary when the clear, leisurely flute notes reached my ears. From habit, I glanced at my watch and saw that the time was 9:26. The spectral flute player had come much closer to me now. He seemed somewhere in the vicinity of the sawmill this morning. Dropping my diary and pen at once, I shouted, "Come, Rayburn!" and took 2 swift paces towards where Jessie reclined in her deck chair with the Strand magazine. In the background of my awareness, I could hear the quick thumping of Rayburn's foot treads in the pantry. This morning, I was in for a surprise. I found myself standing foolishly by Jessie's chair, hands half outstretched to grasp her. But there was no need to grasp her. Instead of the expected burst of activity from her, nothing happened. She stared up at me in a wondering, questioning manner. She murmured, "What's it? There's nothing wrong yet. I haven't seen any of it, or heard the flute." "But it's happening now. It's the flute," I told her. She rose and looked about her. "But I don't hear a note. I don't see that awful thing, Milton. It should have been down there, in the clearing." She glanced towards where Rayburn had her father firmly in control. "Daddy's seeing it as usual, isn't he?" "Of course he is. And I'm hearing the flute too," I told her. She gave a puzzled grunt. And then as I looked at her, I noticed something. Her features were twitching slightly, as though she were about to grimace. I could not remember her ever having showed her nervousness in this way. I looked down, and another thing struck me. Her fingers were curling in slowly, as though her hands were making an attempt to clench, but for some reason never completed the action. It was a significant development in the story of my bones and my flute. When the flute stopped, Jessie seemed to sigh and look about her in wonder, almost as though she had just been roused from a fit of deep reflection, or had had her attention called off abruptly from a book in which she had been engrossed. "Has it stopped now?" she asked. "Yes, it has." "But how did you guess?" I asked her. She shook her head, mumbling confusedly, "I don't know, I just seemed to guess. But why didn't I hear it too, as usual, Milton? What's gone wrong now? You think I'm going to be left in peace now? Or is this something new that's going to happen to me that I don't know about yet?" What could I reply? I was as much mystified as she. I shook my head and told her that I was beaten. "Completely floored. Believe me," I said. "I don't like it," she frowned. "It makes me feel as if, well, sort of uneasy. Oh, I hate all this mystery and horror." "Look here," I said, squeezing her arm. "Better not say anything to the others about this. I mean, about not hearing the flute. It will only worry them more than they're already worried. We'll keep it to ourselves, and I'll keep a strict eye on you to watch developments." She nodded and said it would be all right. She wouldn't say anything. For the rest of that day, I kept remembering that grimace and the slowly curling fingers. My theory had stirred into life, and it was so horrible a theory that I felt breathless at the mere thought of expressing it aloud to anyone. I could do no work at my easel that day. When the flute sounded again at about 7 that evening, Jessie reacted in the same way as she had done in the morning. I watched her face with an avid fascination, and again I saw it, that grimace. and I looked down and saw her fingers curling inward. It was as though, for those few moments, she had cast off her old personality and was having a new and unspeakably evil one thrust into her, and she put up no fight. She was allowing herself to be swamped by this ugly presence from outside, whatever it was, and wherever it came from. Once I noticed her glance across at her mother, who stood by the pantry door watching Rayburn restrain Mr. Nevinson, and I knew that it was no fancy on my part. In Jessie's eyes there was a threatening, malevolent glitter. As she watched her mother, her fingers grew more restless in their curling, clutching motions. A tremor of horror and alarm rushed through me. Afterwards I asked her what had been her sensations, and she gave a start as though surprised. Her expression became one of genuine blankness and innocence. I knew without doubt that she was not staging an act. She was unaware of the transformation that had taken place in her only a few seconds before. She said, "How do you mean? What were my sensations? I tell you I heard or saw nothing. It stopped completely, and I hope it doesn't start up again either." There was genuine relief in her voice. I made a bantering remark and let the matter go at that, for I knew that it might do her more harm than good if I acquainted her with what I considered to be the true state of things. I said nothing to her parents either about what I suspected, for I had a sudden fear of their suffering from a nervous breakdown. We were none of us very far from this condition, and there was no predicting what effect the shock of my intimation might have on them. As events fell out, however, it became imperative for me to tell them of my suspicions only a few days after my coming to this decision. That night, Jessie was again inflicted with the moonlight dream, as we came to call it, and like the previous nights it occurred some hours after the one from which her mother suffered. It was decided on the following morning that the two of them should in future sleep with a light. The suggestion came from me. I told them it would give them both more reassurance. Mrs. Nevinson said that she never slept with a light, but I told her that it need only be a 10-watt lamp, and it could be shaded to keep the rays from falling directly on the beds. She agreed that this would be in order, and Rayburn, who kept a stock of bulbs over at the sawmill, brought the required one, which we substituted for the 60-watt normally in use. At 12 minutes past 3 on Friday afternoon, the exact time to the minute of every manifestation except perhaps 2 is recorded in my diary, came the next alarm. This time, however, I divided my attention between studying the reactions of Jessie and taking down the notes of the flute. This was something I had wanted to do ever since these manifestations had started, but I had not had the opportunity. What with taking care of Mr. Nevinson and then Jessie, I had been too fully occupied. As I have already hinted, music has always been one of my leading obsessions. Up to the time of these events I had even tried my hand at composing. Therefore, it was no difficult matter for me to jot down that simple, formless little tune, with which by now I had become only too familiar. Over the weekend, Jessie's behavior grew increasingly alarming. On Saturday afternoon, when the flute sounded, her face grew distorted in a most revolting manner, and I heard her utter a sound that seemed neither bestial nor human. It was indescribably terrible. It was on Sunday night, however, that I had confirmation of the horrible thing I suspected. At the top of the page allotted to that Sunday in my diary, I wrote, "Day of the Black Night." When we retired on that Sunday night, we did so with comparatively easy minds. At least the others did. I did not. We had been looking out for another manifestation since dusk, and when 9 o'clock came and nothing had happened, we had begun to become pessimistic, fearing that we would be roused during the night. But at 9:52 the flute made itself heard, and when the crisis had passed, we went to bed feeling that we could count upon at least 6 hours of peace. Jessie and her mother would be roused in any case when their respective nightmares occurred. But this feature of our troubles, upsetting as it was, somehow seemed to unnerve them far less than the flute manifestations. In a way, I suppose it was natural. A dream, when all was said and done, was a dream, and no matter how vivid, could not hope to outdo for sheer dread and terror a tangible event experienced when one was fully awake. Jessie, though deaf to the flute and unable to see the apparition, still anticipated the occurrence of the manifestation with nervous dread, a fact that did not fail to register on me. Her mother's tenterhooks resulted from her anxiety on her husband's behalf. Whenever a manifestation occurred, it was always upon her husband that Mrs. Levenson's attention became focused. It was because of this obsession with her husband, in fact, that she had not, even up to this Sunday night, observed what had been happening to Jessie. I had been the only witness to the girl's strange antics. I was the only one on this Sunday night, therefore, who knew of the horror threatening the girl, and that was why I got into my pajamas, far from easy in mind. Indeed, I was in a particularly morbid mood. At this point in the terrible adventure, my bones and my flute